Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Eric Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health. Thanks so much for tuning back here to another exciting episode where we're going to talk about a very cool documentary that I just recently watched called Stink. It's on Netflix, and I want to give you my thoughts on it because I think it does pertain to a lot of the things we talk about here, and just kind of hash out some ideas that I was kind of pondering in my mind as I watched this, and now as I go about my life thinking about this. And it's going to pertain to you because, look, we're all in this chemical soup that we call modern day life, and it just seems like the wool is being pulled over our eyes, and we're getting further and further and further away from what's really happening here as far as this topic is concerned. So I want to get into this talking about chemicals and the FDA and just, general shenanigans and why we're all just so much at risk and why it's so important that the word gets out that not only do we combat this chemical shenanigans, but we start to empower ourselves and take care of ourselves, and really diet and holistic health plays into this more than really anything else I could imagine. So we're gonna get into all that, but first we gotta handle the business. You know what it's like. I gotta give you a quick reminder. If you're new here to the podcast, if you just were randomly shuffling around iTunes or your podcast player and stumbled upon the good old Holistic A-Hole podcast, make sure you take a second. It's only a second. You've got millions of seconds in your life. Hit the subscribe button right there in your podcast player, whether it's on your phone, your iPad, your Alexa, your computer, whatever, your freaking supercomputer. If you're listening to this from the International Space Station and it's blasting over the speakers, hit the subscribe button however you can do it. That way it pops up in your good old podcast feed every time it gets released, which is about twice a week at this point. And if you haven't done this yet, you're going to love the podcast. I mean, I know you're going to. Most people who listen to it do. Go leave a review on iTunes. This helps me so much. Also, you know what it does is it gives me a little insight into your a-hole's mind, so I can kind of start catering this a little bit more to what you guys like, because what this a-hole thinks is one thing, but what you a-holes want, that's a whole other ball game. And that's what I'm about. I'm about y'all. And also, while you're showing love, go join the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group. That's on Facebook, where I'm sharing all kinds of videos and podcasts and things that I find around the web. It's kind of like my own Holistic A-Hole newsletter, which I don't have yet. But I put actually a really cool video on there yesterday about this lady who confronted the CDC, who used to be a nurse in a hospital, and just freaking gave it to these people. And look, it just confirms everything that I've been saying about the flu shot and the vaccines. And it's really powerful and might make you tear up a little bit because this lady is just all about, the truth about the vaccines and the flu shot, and, how she pretty much, kept her mouth shut for over 20 years as a nurse to keep her job when she knew that the flu shot was just BS. And she's seen people, she's seen kids suffer at the hands of these toxic chemicals that we inject in their veins. So go join the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group. That's where that stuff is. And also follow me on Instagram, Holistic A-Hole. I've been really diving in deep to Instagram. I used to hate it, and now I'm really starting to love it. I got videos, I got food pics, I got just random stuff of me doing, and pretty soon I'm going to start doing some live stuff and getting a lot of really cool content up there. So join the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group, Holistic A-Hole on Instagram, and then follow me on YouTube, where there are now videos going back up, and got one up last week talking, what was I talking about? The stupid healthcare video where they're reminding people to sign up for Obamacare. And then I got a few coming out this week. The vegan Trump supporter, it's all there. So go take a minute, join all this stuff, follow me, show me some love, because this is a community, y'all. It's not just about me like some other podcasts you listen to. It's about you guys, and it's about coming together and, if nothing else, changing the goddamn world. Am I right? What were we talking about this podcast? Oh, we're talking about The Stink documentary. Is there any more sexier of a name for a podcast, for a documentary on Netflix? Nonetheless, it's called Stink with an exclamation point. And if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you watch it. It was incredible. It's very informative. And it's one of those things that, like, man, you watch that documentary, like most documentaries, and you're like, this is the most important documentary to come out in the last 20 years. And that's how I felt, of course. Of course, I'm going to watch another documentary probably today, and then I'm going to think the same goddamn thing. Because that's what documentaries do. They get you charged up, right? They give you the information. And look, I'll be honest. I've watched documentaries before and have been allowed myself to dive into that little wormhole of, just falling head over heels for it. Something like, the vegan documentaries, What the Health and Cowspiracy. That's what started my vegan journey, was watching those documentaries. And now that I'm not vegan anymore, I look back at those with a very critical eye, which was a lesson for me, for this a-hole, that when you watch these documentaries or you get any kind of information, you should just kind of take it with a grain of salt. Even what you hear from me, even though I'm trying my hardest not to slant anything, for my own personal gain. I'm trying to be as honest and transparent as I can. But you should always kind of take things with a grain of salt. Put it in you, let it kind of marinate, do your own research, and come to your own conclusion. And, like vegan documentaries like What the Health, it's like, now that I look back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, they really were hitting you over the head with that vegan, message. And, man, they really did not allow any room for any kind of, counterpoint. But, this documentary, Stink, I didn't find any need for a counterpoint, because it's stuff that, going into that documentary, I've been talking about this stuff forever, right? The shenanigans of, government organizations like the fucking FDA. You know what I mean? How corrupt and slimy the FDA is. And the fact that really they're just a front group for big business, Now, I'm a dirty, filthy capitalist. I have no problem with big businesses. I have no problem with big businesses making money. But what I do have a problem with is big businesses hiring lobbyists who now go to our lawmakers and pretty much stuff the pockets of our lawmakers and our government organizations, and even put their own members in these organizations for their own corporate interests so that they can specifically hide the dangers of their own products, right? You see this in the cigarettes, right? The cigarette industry. This is what they were famous for in the 1950s, 1960s. Oh, cigarettes? No, they don't cause cancer. What are you, crazy? Doctors smoke cigarettes in the doctor's office while they're knocking your knee with a little hammer, and then, they're telling you to eat more carrots and more oranges and more, eat more butter and steak, and you know what you need? You need to wake up in the morning, take a vitamin C, and smoke a cigarette, and then he blows some smoke in your face, right? That's what the cigarette companies would be like, no, cigarettes don't cause cancer. Meanwhile, every single day they're getting just, papers and documents that, and studies that show that, oh, dude, like, people are dying a lot because of cigarettes. And then you see it, in the oil industry. Big oil is famous for that. Oil doesn't cause global warming. What are you, out of your mind? The fact that we take, this black tar out of the ground and then, put it in through engines, and then it goes up into the sky. It's the most, it's the most, what do you call it? Flammable material on the planet, and we put it in the sky, and then the sun beams it, and somehow that's not. I mean, I don't know. Is it causing global warming? Who knows? What is global warming? I don't even know anymore. But the fact that it doesn't cause just all of these terrible environmental hazards. If BP just spills millions of barrels, not gallons, but barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, the dolphins will be fine. The jellyfish will be fine. The whales will be fine. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not like we eat the fish out. Oh, we do eat the fish out of the Gulf of Mexico. Well, it's not like, we're going to get sick because we're eating fish that have been eating, BP oil and then the weird chemical they put in there to try to just, not even clean up the oil, but just kind of like make it so it wasn't directly on the surface of the water. And that just goes to the ocean floor. And then we just drink that water and eat that food. We don't drink the water, but we eat the food out of the ocean. Not to mention, all of the animal life. Oh, that's no big deal. This is what the big companies do. I'm not even gonna say an industry. It's like every industry. This is what all the industries do to cover up the chemicals they put in their products to make it so that we keep buying it and just kind of turn a blind eye to the fact that every day, we are just inhaling and touching and putting in our bodies weird man-made toxic chemicals that we don't even know what they're doing, And here's the really unfortunate thing, and I gotta put a little blame of this on myself, which is we focus so much on things like nutrition, and diet and lifestyle and exercise, and we're like, all the studies come out and they say, you see, saturated fat causes cancer, and then we come out and we say, see, sugar causes cancer, and nowhere in those studies do they take any kind of measurement of toxic chemical exposure. This is really the problem of the nutrition industry. This is why you can't trust so many of these studies that come out that say, these people had cancer, this food causes cancer, or, eating more margarine or more butter or more meat or more chicken or more freaking broccoli or whatever causes cancer, or more sugar causes cancer, because who knows, dude? Who knows? What they do know is that when you live in certain places, like if you live, close to an airport, like fucking this a-hole does right here, you have a higher risk of getting cancer. If you live near oil drilling sites, or fracking sites, you have a higher risk of getting cancer. It's even to the point where they say if you live within a certain distance of dry cleaners, you have a higher risk of getting cancer. Okay. Now, the documentary itself is actually produced by a guy, I don't know his name. Seems like a good dude. It's kind of a very interesting but sad story. He lost his wife to breast cancer, and now he's living with, he's taking care of his 2 girls. And you kind of learn that throughout the, throughout the documentary. Sorry, spoiler alert. If this was a huge reveal, I don't think it is. You'll figure it out as it goes along. But basically what he's doing is, it all starts off because he gets his girls a present from, from some store, one of those, knick-knack stores they have in the malls or whatever. And they bring it home, and it had I don't remember exactly what it was, like a pillow or like a doll or a toy or something. I apologize on the details. It's been like a week since I've watched this documentary, so the details are a little hazy. But you watch, it's right there on Netflix, dude. Just go watch. I think it's even on YouTube. Just go watch it. And so they pull the doll or the toy or whatever it was out of the package, and it just reeks of chemicals. And I'm sure we've all had this before. If you've ever ordered anything off Amazon, chances are you've experienced this, right? You get something like pillows, okay? For instance, if you buy outdoor gear like tents, sometimes you can buy clothes, jackets, shoes, really anything. It's like sometimes you open up the package and there's just a freaking waft, just a wave of chemical stink that goes right into your face. And it's, it's chemicals, it's not like a pleasant smell, right? And it's not like a natural smell. A natural smell, like if you go out into the forest and you smell the pine trees, those aren't chemicals, and if you walk to the ocean, you can smell the ocean, that it's not that smell. It's the smell of just a concoction of chemicals. And so this guy became very concerned. And so he starts calling around the companies, and he's like, hey, just curious, do you know what is causing this smell. And they give him like the list of ingredients that go into the thing, and it kind of comes, he kind of like drills it down to figure out that the company representatives, like the customer service, like you cannot get the list of chemicals that are in the products you're buying, right? Those are they company secrets? Are they not even known by the company? I mean, who knows, right? There's so many chemicals that go into, just look around your house or your apartment or your car or wherever you are, and you will see, I mean, just a soup of chemical ingredients that we're just swimming in every day. And I don't know exactly how many different chemicals there are. I think I've heard that there's over 80,000 chemicals that are registered. That doesn't include the chemicals that aren't registered, if there are. I don't know. But nonetheless, 80,000. Think about how big that number is. How can we understand? How can we know what the hazard is of each one of these chemicals, especially when you start to consider who are we? What chemicals are we made up of? And how resilient to these chemicals are we to begin with? How resilient are our genetics? How resilient is our own DNA, right? Like the epidermis, the skin is pretty tough, but man, it lets a lot of shit through, Like for instance, if you go and you put hand lotion on your hand, the amount of chemicals you're putting on your hand is unbelievable. And the big thing with this documentary specifically is he's talking about the smell, the fragrance that you get in a lot of these different products, not just like in his example, like the toy or the doll or whatever it was that he was giving to his freaking kid. But it's like, I mean, you can go to Bath and Body Works, for instance. A lot of you ladies love to go to the Bath and Body Works, and you get the lotions and the creams, and they've got such, nice names like peach lavender and strawberry surprise and, watermelon, wet willy, or whatever you get. It all has like a very specific scent. Well, that specific scent isn't because they took a freaking watermelon and stuffed it through a processor and then just captured the watermelon smell. It's because they know the exact chemicals to put together to make something smell like watermelon, or they know how to make it smell like peach, or they know how to make it smell like vanilla or lavender or whatever it is, And we don't know what those chemicals are because by law, they don't have to tell us. This is where the FDA comes in, because the FDA is taking millions, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars from industry to basically make it so that they're bulletproof, so they don't have to put that shit on their labels. So even if they did put, some crazy confusing chemical that, I mean, you would need, a 4-year degree and then another 4-year degree of a master's or PhD in chemistry just to understand what that chemical is and what it does, they're able to keep that shit off the label. So, you go to Bath and Body Works, you get yourself some of that, creamy peach, vanilla, whatever hand lotion you get, you start, pouring that all over your body. Well, guess what? That shit is getting in you. It slips into your skin. Your skin absorbs stuff, okay? And then where does it go from there? It goes right into your bloodstream. So, the easiest one would be like lead. That's everywhere, right? There could be lead. Maybe there's not lead. Maybe some chemical. Do you want that chemical in your freaking bloodstream? And then we wonder why so many women today are dealing with things like Hashimoto's, because that's the first place your freaking immune system, lady. Hey, lady. That's the first place your immune system goes to attack is your thyroid, because your thyroid is basically like the boss of, your body temperature, your metabolism. And for some reason, I don't know why, but it attracts your immune system. Your immune system goes and just starts fucking going at it, starts knocking the shit out of your thyroid, like your thyroid is an invading disease, okay? Because your immune system has been so thrown off by these chemicals in your body. And why? Because you had to get the extra scented peachy hand cream or whatever. And I'm not trying to make you feel bad or make you guilty, but this is like what's happening. This is what's happening in your body. And then, like, as nutritionists, we kind of fall short because we say, oh, it's because it's so simple. You're eating too much sugar, or you're eating too much saturated fat, or you need to go keto or vegan. And a lot of women struggle with these things and can't overcome their hypothyroidism or their Hashimoto's because it's not the diet. It's the chemicals that they're surrounded by, or you're surrounded by. Sometimes these weird cancers, the leukemia, the blood cancer, just pops up out of nowhere. People, you hear about it all the time. They live healthy lifestyles, and they exercise and they eat healthy diets, and they're high fat or they're low fat or they're whatever, right? And they're doing CrossFit or they're running marathons or they're doing yoga and they're spiritual and they meditate. Well, you also can't stop the fact that your walls are laden with paint full of some crazy ass chemical that the paint company has permission from the FDA to not list on the ingredients. When if they did, they probably couldn't sell that shit because it would be so highly carcinogenic that nobody would buy it. And they have, proposed, congressmen and citizens have proposed these ideas to be able to put labels on stuff that say, these products contain these chemicals and this is, highly carcinogenic, or there is a risk when you use this. But the companies lobby the FDA, your precious government entity that people, by the way, and this is why I kind of lean, libertarian, because the fucking regulations themselves permit this insane government bureaucracy that does nothing for us but take our tax dollars and, give money to the pharmaceuticals and drop bombs on countries that we've never even heard of. Oh, and then allow all these chemicals to be put in all our different products that we put on our hands, our faces, our, clothe ourselves with, or, put in our cars, or kind of spray around to make things smell better. And we just kind of have become so numb. We become so numb to these things. Why? Because we're disconnected. We're disconnected from the earth, from what things should really smell like. That when we smell chemicals, we don't think twice about it. When you eat chemicals, you don't think twice about it. You just put a fucking Dorito in your mouth, or a bag of Doritos in your mouth, not even thinking like, dude, there are so many chemicals in this thing right now that my body is not designed to process. I am destroying my liver. I am destroying my fucking gallbladder. I am destroying my immune system, my gut. I'm depleting my body of so many nutrients just to process these foods full of chemicals, but it doesn't matter because it tastes so good, right? This is the problem with the stink, with the chemicals, and with the food. And this is why, as a nutritionist, like, what I'm trying to do is, I know nutrition can only do so much, but it's not about, having good nutrition because you want to be healthy, or you want a six-pack, or you want to look good. No, it's about building a fortress in your body. That's what it is. It's about building a defense. We, in this country, spend so much money on fucking defense, do we not? On military defense, like hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Like, it's nothing on defense. Why? So we don't get invaded by China or Mexico or Canada or Europe, European countries, or whoever would want to invade us. Nobody's fucking with us, right? Because we're goddamn America. Because we got the troops, we got the artillery, we got the fortress. And this is what you got to do to your body. By the way, this is not like a pro-America military podcast. I have plenty of critiques on the American military industrial complex, trust me, but I'm just using it as an analogy for your body. You have to invest in your own body's defenses because you're surrounded by these chemicals that just are trying to fucking kill you. They're trying to oxidize your cells. They're trying to oxidize your bones. You ever look at like a rusted out car? That's oxidation. That's free radicals. That's what's happening every second in your body. And if you're not producing the the antioxidants, the natural defense, if you're not getting enough vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, the B vitamins, the vitamin C, the holy grail of vitamins, if you're not getting the good fats, enough glucose to properly function, if you're not, if you're just abusing your body with alcohol and cigarettes and fucking pharmaceutical drugs and even illicit drugs, if you're drinking shit water, if you're breathing shit air, if you're not sleeping, if you're not building the goddamn fortress out of your body, then this is where the disease comes in. And in 2018 going into 2019, this disease is your body's even more susceptible to these diseases, because let me tell you, they are not stopping the chemical production. If nothing else, dude, everything is coming from China and they don't give a fuck. I'll tell you right now, they don't give a fuck. There's not one Chinese person making anything that you own that is like, I need to make sure that this is safe for Americans. They don't care, dude. They're just trying to pump plastic out of that motherfucker and send it over here for you to buy to give to your kids for Christmas. Okay? So, and it's fucking with your DNA. So if you don't have kids, but you want to have kids, and if you want your kids to be able to have kids, well then here's the thing. Your genetics, these things are endocrine disruptors, right? They're fucking with your actual genetics, okay? This might be a reason, this might be a little controversial, why so many boys are now trying to become girls, because our hormones are a complete disaster, because we've been inundated with chemicals for about 100 years now. And that shit is starting to catch up genetically. It's starting to fuck with our DNA. And that carries on into your young. So now we're having kids that have had now generations before them whose DNA has slowly become more shitty. And the shittier it gets, the shittier their genes are. So a little boy stands up one day, he's 2, he has a little pee-pee, but he's like, no, I'm a little girl. Right? And then he just grows up thinking that. And his immune system is fucked up. And he's got a fucked up gut. And he wonders why he's got, IBS and Crohn's, or maybe even autism. And then, by the way, wants to be a little girl, because we are not doing the work. You're not doing the work. I'm not doing the work. We have to do the work. You have to take care of yourself. You got to create the fortress, because you and your children depend on it. And this documentary stink. I mean, I can't even get in. I don't have enough time to really get into the nitty gritty of it. With the the biggest problem is the endocrine disruptors. Just the cancerous, toxic materials. You got to go watch this documentary. If you want to be educated, which you should want to be educated on this, there's a million things you could do. I understand. But this documentary... Also, I don't think it's the greatest documentary. I think it was good. I think the topic's super interesting and super important. I think the guy, kind of had a hard time a little bit, pressing some of these congressmen, and, it was a little bit of like grandstanding at some times. So I don't think it was like the best documentary I've seen, but the issue itself, we need to see more of that. So maybe you're the type of person who is super passionate about this. Get out there, make your voice heard. Don't be afraid of people calling you a weirdo, right? People call me a fucking weirdo, a crazy person all the time, okay? But this is so important, man. It's so important. And if we don't get control of our chemical environment, at least in your own body, then man, there's so many prices to pay, and it's really fucked up. So I do encourage you, go, the next thing you should do after listening to this, your call to action, go to Netflix, watch that documentary. If you don't have Netflix, it's freaking, $12 a month? Just do it. How do you not have Netflix? Or go fucking pirate it off the internet. You can totally do that. And if you don't have the internet, then you know what? Just go up back into your mountain and meditate and just breathe good air, because that's all you can do. Get educated on these chemicals. Get educated on how to build a fortress out of your body, and you will survive, and your children will survive, and you will be much happier, and everybody will be much happier. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Let me know what you think. Make sure you go leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening to this on. And let me know what you think. Shoot me an Instagram message. And if we're not buddies on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I might follow you back. Find me on YouTube at Holistic A-Hole. Join the Holistic A-Hole's Facebook group. Shoot a message as to what you thought of this podcast, what you think of the documentary Stink, and what you think of this topic altogether. And there's also Twitter. You can find me on Twitter. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you're new here, take a few hours, go through a holistic a-hole binge. Share this with anybody you love who you think needs to know this, especially if they're like pregnant or something. Share this with people you love who need to hear this message. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.